Good morning, everyone. We are delighted to have Continuum with us. We have Mark Rhodes and Chris Deviser joining us, as well as one of our mutual customers, Andrew Miller from Generate Capital. We're going to do a little something different here. It's more of a roundtable discussion this morning. Stop the madness, how to eliminate paper and manual data entry for your finance team. So just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website, and that's innovia.com. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation, so please feel free to type them into the questions box and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'm going to kick it off to Mark, and he will begin the presentation.
Thank you very much, Angie. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, especially to Angie for pulling all this together. She puts a lot of time and effort to bring you these opportunities to hear about what's going on with technology in general and how to extend your BC or NAV environment and installation. And thank you for Innovia as well for the ongoing terrific partnership. Love working with the Innovia team, especially because they're fans of Continuum. But really glad to have the chance to spend a few minutes with you this morning. We definitely want your questions as we're moving through today. We're going to talk a little bit about how to improve just overall the document flow and manual processes within your organization. And we're going to do a little demo as well, in particular for AP automation and how to automate those invoices. So lots to cover today. I'm going to go ahead and start diving in. Let me see, make sure that my screens are going forward here. Hey, we're on a mission to help companies around the world reduce paper, or dare I say, eliminate paper. Is that really a thing that we can achieve? Eliminate paper and stop manual data entry and manual activities. I'm guessing, especially if you're with a finance team at your organization, some of these or most of these are ringing true with you. If you are chasing people around for paper, chasing people around for approvals, spending time on non-value added activities, we want to help with that. We have been at this for 30 years, trying to help organizations do away with all of that and really focus on much more intelligent activities, really analyzing data and spotting trends and being prescriptive and being able to drive the business forward instead of those repetitive tasks. And if you're doing one of those tasks, you know exactly what I mean. And so before we get into how we actually do that, we thought it would be a fantastic idea to hear straight from one of your fellow Innovians. Did I just coin a word, Angie? Perhaps one of your fellow Innovia customers who took the plunge and installed document capture. So I'd like to introduce Andrew Miller with Generate Capital. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Mark.
I am so thankful that you agreed to spend a few minutes. You've got an awful lot of projects under your belt and underway there at Generate Capital, but thank you very much for sharing your input and feedback after working with Continuum for a bit. And so welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, just tell everybody a little bit about what Generate Capital is and does.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about what Continuum is and what it can do for a company. Generate Capital is is one of the leading investment companies working in investing in sustainable infrastructure. We've been around for about 8 years now, and we've delivered needed funds for nearly 2,000 sustainable infrastructure projects across solar, wind, storage, and the like. You know, we are firm believers that climate change and combating climate change does not have to be a nonprofit endeavor, and we believe that it can be profitable and good for the world.
Fantastic. Love to hear that. Love to hear that. So some time ago, you all said, hey, we've got to stop the madness, stop dealing with all this paper. We can automate our invoices. Tell me a little bit about what led into that that particular endeavor. Why did you want to embrace some document automation?
Absolutely. So this is actually Continuum is sort of one of our second attempts at automation. We have used Bill.com for certain things. However, there were some significant downsides to that when working with our BC environment. A little bit about us is we have a BC on-prem instance. We have about 240 companies within that BC instance, and nearly 60 of them are actually payable entities as well. And so with that comes, a variety of problems of scale. And one of the things that we were really looking for was the ability to, number one, make payments internationally, which Bill.com did not support for us. And number two was to improve the ability to match our invoices to our purchase orders. And the Bill.com synchronization really wasn't providing that. So we were looking for a solution that provided efficient document capture services while being integrated with the tool that we use as our ERP in Business Central, and Continuum is clearly the right fit for that. So that's why we embarked on that. And now we have 15 companies live on Continuum, and hopefully are about to have about another 15 live by the end of this year.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow, that's a lot of companies. For everybody out there, they can immediately empathize with your environment and the complexity that's going on there. And I will share, I love in particular hearing your story, not only because just your purpose in life, but just the complexity involved, right? And that's one of the things that I really value in our solution is its scalability and its ability to grow with companies. You hit right on it, right? You started out with so many companies, and now you're adding to it. Unless you're only getting, I'd really say like 5 or 10 invoices a month, I think it can work for any company, but you just illustrated even for fairly decent sized companies and complex environments, it can work. So wow, it sounds like you're finding it very easy to use, and finding a lot of success in the implementation there and continuing to grow with it. What's the team think? Are they happy not having to manually key invoices and automating some of those processes now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Continuum is an incredibly powerful solution, and so therefore it comes with a lot of configuration options. And so looking at implementation, it's one of those things where having a good partner like Innovia is definitely something that you want to make sure you have. And we're still finding things that Continuum can do even beyond sort of our initial. And so it's a pleasant surprise to find new capabilities and ways that Continuum can help us with our workflows and automating that out. In terms of not having to manually import invoices, the team is over the moon on that, and because again, even with our prior solution, they may not have had to enter the data from an OCR perspective, right? But we still have to swivel chair the data from one system to another. Now everything's all right in the ERP, and so that's a very helpful thing for our team.
Boy, I appreciate that. Love hearing that story. Andrew, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Glad to hear that you're having fun with it and continuing to expand with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So Andrew hit on 2 key points there too that I want to emphasize further. We'll do that in a second as we start into our approach, but I want to make everybody aware we're going to talk about obviously document capture today. And one of those points that Andrew made was it's not just for invoices, and again, we'll touch on that. But we also have expense management. If you have employees that are incurring expenses and looking for reimbursement and or have corporate credit cards, we have a fantastic solution for that. Again, built inside Business Central, so already integrated, already embedded in Business Central, and really facilitates the reconciliation of those corporate credit card expenses. And yes, we go out on a limb, but we say expense reporting can be fun. At least it's not as painful as a lot of people currently experience. And so that's what we're trying to achieve there. And then we have document output. And that's for sending out emails and statements, really anything you want using Business Central or NAV data, sending it out of the system and keeping a log and complete audit trail of everything that's sent out. So as mentioned, we're going to talk about document capture today. But first, I wanted to come back to a couple things Andrew said. We are built inside Business Central. You'll see immediately it is Business Central. I would say it looks like Business Central, but it really is. We're writing the Business Central tables, NAV tables. Anytime I say Business Central, I mean both, of course, but we do go back to NAV 3.7. If you're still using those older versions out there, we can help you as well, so don't feel excluded there. So we're writing to Business Central tables, using Business Central data. It's all immediately available. There's no technical debt to worry about. It's just there going forward. No new user interface or anything else to learn. So a lot of benefits immediately and downstream from that fact. And then the other key point Andrew mentioned, we work through Innovia. If you decide to implement document capture, you're not going to have to get to know another vendor and deal with another party and then worry about fingerprinting and everything else. Innovia will do the implementation for you and do the support going forward. They already know your environment, they know your business processes, and so it's a real facilitated implementation. And again, you're calling people you already know. So we feel very strongly about working through the partner for those reasons, and it simplifies your experience greatly, we think. So yeah, let's go ahead and start diving into document capture a little bit. Andrew mentioned starting to look at other uses besides invoices, and this is what he was talking about. Really, any document you have being sent to your organization, incoming into your organization, if you want to capture that in your system, if you want to create a record in Business Central or NAV, that's where we can help. So invoices are fantastic because, well, every organization has them, and it's a real quick win, right, to go ahead and get those implemented. But think about all those other documents you have coming in, perhaps purchase orders, and you want to create sales orders out of that, or you're in F&B and you have a lot of documentation you have to keep track of and attach to records and be able to reference later. The document capture is a fantastic solution for that. Really is perhaps an unlimited set of opportunities and types of documents that you can capture. So we are going to talk about invoices today. And in particular, if you are interested in invoice automation, pretty much we've got you covered. We do the line level matching, matching to the PO, matching to the receipt, all up to you. We can code to dimensions and projects, and again, very, very flexible and configurable. My favorite thing is the search. Chris is going to show that at the end of the demo. Oh my gosh, if you've ever spent any time trying to figure out when's the last time we bought a certain item, when's the last time we bought from a certain vendor, having to put a report together for auditors, you're not going to believe how easy this is. Within seconds, you can find out all of this information, see the entire trail, see who approved what, when. It's really, really impressive because it's all captured again in the system in Business Central and NAV. I want to give you a picture of where we fit into the normal purchasing process. We pick up at the point that the invoice comes in, and I'll show you on the next slide kind of the picture of how that happens. And then we can automate all the way through the actual posting. If you want to configure it to where everything is automated 100%, you never have to view the invoice. We got you covered. Now, most organizations want to see it at some point, understandably, and so you can dial that in exactly where you want to have that pop up. We can dial in thresholds to where if it falls outside that, of course, there's a warning and you'll see it on the log so you can see that. And then of course, with approvals, again, can automate or keep it as manual as you want, but really dial it into your business process. So those invoices come in ideally through email, but if you still get them in paper, no problem, we'll throw them on a scanner. We'll get that read by the OCR engine. That OCR engine reads everything on the invoice, whether you formally capture that piece of data in a field in Business Central or Nav, no problem, it's still captured, still searchable. We even capture the accompanying email. So if you need that context later on, you can go back and take a look at that. So we capture all that, scan it through the OCR index, go ahead and register that purchase invoice, and then it drops into our approval portal. And we've got a separate browser-based portal. So folks that aren't in Business Central can still participate in the approval process. And most companies have that situation. So it's a easy to use, very focused, streamlined portal that you use through the browser. You can do that on your phone. Again, we'll show you that in a minute. Go through the approval process and it's all logged. So very efficient, very easy to see where everything is in the process. And with that, let's see how it actually works. And I'd like Chris to share for that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Just double checking that you see Business Central right now.
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. Yes, lots of information already that we've covered. And now we're going to show you how does it work. As mentioned, documents can come in various ways, but typically we monitor the email box that you probably already have where vendors send invoices to. Those emails get automatically read and the attachments get OCR'd. OCR stands for Object Character Recognition for those unfamiliar with that. So we're going to really take any piece of data that's in that document and import that into Business Central. We allow you to kind of grow into the system. We're not replacing any existing functionality. We're just making it easier and automating it to the extent that you would like it automated. So in the most automated way, after the import runs automatically, we're going to automatically register the documents, meaning we're going to apply the logic that we have defined for that vendor to that particular document. Some vendors you receive purchase orders and purchase receipts with, so you want to make sure that's that three-way match that we mentioned a couple times throughout the presentation. Other vendors, you want to route the documents for an approval process to different people and maybe even dependent on who is approving it. There are approval limits taken into account. So the system is going to route the documents depending on the initial setups that you've done. And as Mark mentioned, the Innovia team has great consultants that can really train you on how to do that and also how to deal with new vendors when they come in, right? We want to empower you with the system that you can control and manage yourself once you're live. Documents get registered, meaning we are generating the invoice, but it's still an open invoice, and we're either going to route it for approval if we need other people to look at it, or we're going to release it if we're able to match it to a purchase order and or a purchase receipt on a line level, which is really unique in this space. Continuum can read the line level and go straight to the lines of the purchase order and the receipt lines to match or partially match that invoice against that. If it matches, or at least it matches to the boxes that you force it to match against, then it could go to released or even posted status automatically, meaning only then the AP team gets involved. They can validate things before they hit post, or like I said, it auto posts. So you can really control the level of automation throughout the entire environment, but also on a vendor by vendor specific level. So we also allow you to slowly transition into the system and just work with high volume vendors in the beginning, for example, or vendors where you have complexity. We have a mutual Innovia customer that receives a monthly invoice, and each invoice could be 20 pages. Each page contains 20, 30 lines, and each line could be associated with a different PO. It would take their AP team several hours to go through that and make sure that it's all done correctly. It took us 5 minutes to set up the vendor, and from that moment on, they never had to deal with the manual elements of that anymore. I'm going to walk you through some examples. This is a Continuum screen, but as Mark mentioned too, it's built inside of Business Central. So for a lot of people, they're like, well, what does Continuum add to the equation? It's actually this screen and a lot of other things, of course, behind the scenes. But because we're built inside, it is sometimes even hard to see the difference between base Business Central and base Continuum. This is a list of documents that came in, and the first 4 are marked as okay, and these would normally process automatically in the background. I would not deal with these, but for the purpose of this demo, I want to walk you through some examples and not just have everything out to post, obviously. And with Lewis Home Furniture as a vendor, we have some predefined setups in the template, and a vendor can have multiple templates. So if you have a vendor that you do both POs and non-PO invoices with, the system can pick up on that and can deal with that in a different manner. But in general, if I select the field right here, then you see highlighted on the right-hand side where that piece of information comes from. And you can control what fields we're going to be picking up on in the header, in the lines, custom fields, other add-ons that you may have installed inside of your Business Central. Really any piece of information, we can either pick it up from the document and feed it to the right place in BC, or we can look up inside of Business Central to find the missing pieces to process correctly on these invoices. If I scroll through this, you can see highlighted what elements are picked up from where in the document. And in general, I can always teach it to pick up new pieces of information. If I would like to capture the posting description, for example, all I need to do is click in posting description and drag and drop a box on the invoice. That data was already captured, but now we taught the system what we want to do with that piece of data. It automatically remembers that. So next time we receive an invoice from Lewis Home Furniture, it knows where to find the posting description, and it will do so. We also validate things, not only within the document itself, right? If it's a multi-line invoice, we're going to make sure that the unit cost, the quantities, the line amounts, and the total amounts all add up. And if there's an inconsistency there, it will flag it to the appropriate person. We also validate against Business Central itself. So we check if the due date is in line with the payment terms that we've agreed upon with this vendor. And in this case, it gives me a warning. It's something I can ignore. I could still process on this document, but depending on how strict you want to be as an organization, you could also have it generate an error. And these are a list of exceptions that we could run into in a document, and you can define how we're going to act upon that. And if you want to assign that then to a particular user, so no need for finance to kind of have to figure all this stuff out and have to go through all of that. If the system finds an exception based on the rules you've defined, the system can route this document to a particular user to take action on. If we're finding a partial match and we want to make sure that all goods have been received, let's send it to the warehouse. No need for finance to go through it and send it to the warehouse manually. The system can do that for you, right? I'm saying all these automation steps, but you don't have to do that. So you could still run in a little bit more controlled environment if you would like to, with a lot of benefits still to the current situation if you're manually doing data entry, of course. So you really define the comfort level of automation for yourself and for the organization. If I click process register, I'm going to generate the invoice. This would normally happen in the background, right? I would not have to click through these things. And I'll show you in a second how we can set this vendor up for automation. But here you can see the status is open, the original file is attached, and we still have an image of the invoice. And if it was multiple pages, I could scroll through those. This will stay with the transaction forever. So after you've posted this, you can still see the original invoice. And we'll get into the posted setup in a little bit as well. But let me send this one out for approval, another step I would normally automate. But now you can see it's pending approval by Richard Lum. And we use the Business Central approval workflows, but we've built logic on top of that in BC as well. So we can do it also on a dimensional level in the line if necessary, meaning that if an approver is only responsible for certain departments or projects or jobs or tasks, they are only responsible to approve those lines, and the system automatically routes the document to get a fully approved invoice for all the other elements as well. This one, you can see the posting description is empty. That's the next Lewis Home Furniture invoice. We apply the template upon importing the file, but when I click recognize fields, it always applies the latest version of the template. And now you see it picked up the posting description on this one as well. When I register this document and send it out for approval, you'll notice that this one is going to 2 approvers because it's over the approval limit that Richard Lom has in this demo environment of $5,000. So automatically a Nat Hill was added to this as well. If we jump to another vendor, this is one where we do purchase order matching with, and you can see it's been fully matched with purchase order 1003. We don't necessarily have to do line recognition. We can also do matching just on the total amount and even the vendor name. We capture the PO number here. You can see that we can look up against all POs for that particular vendor, but we could even do matching just against the oldest outstanding amount, right? So depending on your relationship with the vendor and the information that the vendor provides to you, you can get very granular in how you match, and you can do that on a line level, and you can allow for partial matching. And all these setups are controlled on a vendor by vendor level in what we call a template card. And they inherit basic settings from the master template. So when you initially implement Continuum, we're going to spend time with you on looking at what the majority of your vendors has in common. That's what we're going to set up the master template with. That's going to be the basis for all new vendors. And from there, you can change the settings depending on your needs. And you can see in this case, we're matching to an order and creating an invoice. And after that, we're going to submit it for approval, but we're also going to auto-approve it with a variance, in this case of 0. And we're matching against a receipt or an order. If we want to do a 3-way match, meaning we only generate an invoice if it matches to the purchase order and the goods have been marked as received in Business Central, then we put it to receipt only. That means that we need to have the receipt lines correctly administered in Business Central, otherwise it will not generate the invoice. If we do partial matching, we would only generate an invoice for those goods that we've received, and we keep an eye out for an updated receipt. So the finance team doesn't have to monitor it anymore. If it's been approved, if it checks the boxes, and as soon as the new receipts come in, we'll process on the remainder of the invoice, if that's the case. If we turn on line recognition, you can even get more granular and set up specific line matching features on item number, quantity, unit cost. And for example, if we allow for unit cost, then we can also allow a variance in there if we want to or not, but by default, they are obviously on 0. As mentioned, depending on your relationship with the vendor and your internal protocols, you can get very specific in how you want to deal with some of that matching. Down here are the fields we're going to be picking up on in the header and in the line, and this can be any field, as I mentioned before. So that can be custom fields, can be other add-ons in Business Central that you operate with, and you can define whether they're required or not. These are all inherited from the master template, but if there's with one vendor specifically, you need a specific field, a project code or anything like that, and they put it on there, let's pick it up, right? It's very easy for us to read that piece of information and bring that to the correct location inside of Business Central so that Business Central can process on anything else that is related to that. That is really it from an initial perspective. As documents come in, as mentioned at the very beginning of the demo, if we go into a more automated setup, they get OCR'd automatically, imported automatically, and registered automatically, unlike what I'm showing you today. After that, they either go out for approval or they go straight to a released status if they've been matched to a purchase order and everything else checks out. The approval process can be done in BC, of course, but we often find that our clients want to engage people on the business side of the organization that don't even know what Business Central is and don't really care. In order to engage them in the approval process, we have the Continuum Web Approval Portal. It's an add-on that you could choose to use. Your approvers are real-time integrated. They will get an email typically once a day, with a list of documents that they need to approve. And in that email is a link to the web approval portal. They can also do that on their mobile phone. It is designed so that it renders perfectly on a smaller screen as well. And once they're logged in, single sign-on is obviously available. Once they're logged in, they see a screen like this, where they see the invoice, they can add comments, they can attach additional files if they need to, and if you give them the permission to do so, can interact with the data. You can allow them to enter certain dimensions or jobs or tasks, or really interact with any piece of information on the screen. This is real-time integrated with BC, so I can only select a project that I have the permission to do so, and that is a valid value inside of Business Central. We can make these fields required as well, so you can force your approvers to enter a certain piece of information, so they can help the finance team coding these invoices correctly, so that the finance team doesn't have to gather that information and then have to administer it themselves. This is where the approvers do it for you. Finance can validate it before they post it, of course, but it's going to save a ton of time in collecting that information throughout the organization. You can even allow them to change a GL, for example, on this invoice. But we can still limit what general ledgers they see, so that we can control a little bit to what extent they can book stuff on different GLs. We can even add and split lines if we need to. So really a lot of freedom if you give that to them. You can also really lock that, and then in that case, they can only hit approve, reject, or forward. There's 3 different ways of forwarding an invoice, with or without your approval at the beginning or the end, and then a comment. And all these steps are logged, right? That audit trail, we want to build that out as we go through an approval process, so that when you get audited, either internally or externally, you can pull that up and can always show who's been engaged on this particular document. I'm just going to approve these invoices quickly. If I'm out of the office, I can also assign somebody to approve on my behalf in my absence. So another thing I don't have to bug the finance team for. But when we go back to BC now and I refresh the screen, you can see 1 invoice has been released. 1 still is pending approval. That's because that's that second layer of approval that was required. And this is how approvals look like inside of Business Central. Very similar. But if you are a power user and you're working BC on a daily basis anyway, no need for you to go to the portal if you don't need to. So you can just hit approve. And now we have 2 released purchase invoices. And this could be the very first time that the AP team sees these documents. The files attached, any comments and approval log information is available here. We can, of course, go into the details and change what we find necessary to change. We can really update anything if they have the permission to do so in our user rights inside of Business Central. And from here, I can post this invoice, and Business Central will really see it as any other posted invoice. So it will generate all the payables and all those things. In this list overview, we also have the post batch function. So you can also just post all of them all together if you have a long list of documents. Now, when we go to the posted purchase invoices and we'll look up that same invoice, then there's still a lot of benefits for us after it's been posted as well. We keep an image of the invoice. We have the original file attached. And a couple other things that I want to show you is that audit trail that I mentioned earlier. On a posted invoice, you have a locked overview of who interacted with the document. And this was a simple 1-level approval, so it's only 1 line of information, but you can see the level of detail that you get on the approvals, who did it and when and at what time did they receive it. And if this was going through multiple layers, you would see a long list of all those people that have been engaged. So when you get audited, it is very easy to pull that up. What is also nice is that we hook into the navigate or find related entries function from Business Central. So wherever you are interacting inside of BC and something is related to these documents, say you're in the GL, or when it's a more inventory oriented invoice, you could go to the purchase order or the item ledger entry and those kind of things, right? This list is flexible based on the type of transaction, but you'll always be able to find the document capture document and the document capture file. And when we click on that, it pulls up the document as we've processed on it, and we can quickly look at that. And the same is available from the GL entry. So if we're in the GL and we want to find like what was this invoice about, we click navigate and we get the similar overview, and we can go straight to the document. So very easy to retrieve information after it's been posted as well. And now we're going to Mark's favorite feature, the best for last.
Yes.
Here we go, the document search. As mentioned a couple of times, we index everything that we OCR inside of Business Central. The data lives in Business Central, right? No misunderstandings there. The data is in the BC database, but we allow you to search for that through the BC search function as well that we added. And you can search for the term Radcroft, for example, and we see we have 5 documents that contain that word, 2 of which are registered. When we click on View Document Card, it pulls up that invoice. We did not use the term Radcroft in the actual invoice header and line fields. It's in the address field of the invoice, but we could still pull it up. And a really interesting example I heard the other day was that a customer used it to find an invoice from a laptop that they bought. So you buy a Lenovo laptop and it breaks down 2 years after you bought it. You buy hundreds of laptops over the course of the year. What invoice was related to that laptop, and do we still have warranty? They key in the serial number of the laptop, a field that they didn't really capture inside of Business Central itself, but it still pulls up the invoice because it's on the invoice and we've indexed that, so you can find the original invoice off that laptop, print it, download it, whatever you need to do with it, and then you can go and into the warranty procedure if there is still warranty on that, right? So a very easy example of something that could take hours to figure out, and that just takes you a couple seconds. The file is immediately available as well. That's the PDF that you received and the email that it came in with as well. And also recently available here is the navigate function. So if I want to go straight to the general ledger entries that this invoice created, I can do just that. So another very easy way to find anything related to these transactions. And I think with that, we're at the end of the demo portion. I think we have time for Q&A towards the end, so I'll certainly keep the environment open. But we're going back to you, Mark, and I'll make you a presenter.
Fantastic. Before you do that, we've got a question from Greg.
Okay.
Hey, Greg. Great to get a question from you. You're limited to 1, so let's make sure those are the same questions, but you get just 1 question. And I'm teasing, of course. And I had a question for you too, Chris, but let's go to Greg's question first. Where do imported documents get stored?
Good question. There are several options, from least favorite to favorite, or recommended in the database. Not so recommended because it's gonna really have your database get pretty big pretty quickly. The second option, if you are an on-premise or NAV customer only, so NAV or BC on-prem, we can do it on a file server or network drive of your choice that can run in the cloud or in the basement or under your desk. That really doesn't matter. So that's an option if you run on-prem. And then the third option, where we see most of our customers go nowadays, is Azure Blob storage. A bit of an odd name, but it's a very cheap form of cloud storage that Microsoft offers. Innovia can help you get that set up. The nice thing there is it's very scalable, it's very affordable, and you can really choose the level of backup and security that you want there, of course. The big benefit there is that all data, that the data from the documents lives inside of Business Central. You can access those files inside and through Business Central as well, but they're technically not living inside of Business Central. So you have a little bit of best of both worlds. It also means that if you, for whatever reason, and we hope you obviously always stay with Continuum, but if you, for whatever reason, choose to stop using Continuum, you keep access to your historical records. Obviously, we're not going in and removing things that you've posted and that are part of your books anymore. So you always keep access to that as well. It's your storage environment. You can control that to the extent that you need to.
I actually looked that up the other day, and there's some technical considerations that I didn't understand, but if I understood the pricing right, it's like 14 cents a gig for Azure
Yeah,
Blob storage. When you say
yeah,
inexpensive, yeah, you're not
yeah,
exaggerating.
very affordable. Yeah.
Okay, so Greg's pushing on me a little bit and asking more questions, so let's entertain him. He says, what devices can we use to import documents?
Well, ultimately, they all come in through email. I mean, that's the recommended route. If you're, again, on-prem, there are some other options as well where you can do it through an upload folder or something like that. But in general, really just email it in. Anybody throughout the organization can email it in, whether you publish the email address or not, that's really up to you, of course. And you can create forwarding rules on other email boxes to do that. In terms of devices, if you can scan it and the result is a PDF, you can use it, right? In the old nav world, there are some local hooked up scanners. We can do that as well, but mostly nowadays, everybody has network scanners in the office that can email automatically. And the nice thing is, I don't think we mentioned that we can split these documents out automatically. So if you just put a week long of invoices that you received on paper on Friday morning on the flatbed scanner that has these batch feeding options, just hit start. It maybe generates a 100-page PDF with multiple invoices from multiple vendors with multiple pages. We don't care because we read the data, we import it into Business Central, and we can find unique vendor names, we can find unique invoice numbers. Really any piece of information in the document we can use to identify that it must be a new invoice or it's page 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's where we make the split.
Something else occurs to me, I don't think you mentioned, Chris, is the XML option. And so not very popular here in the States, but Greg, you might be very interested in this in particular. We also have the ability to take in XML documents in XML format, right? And so that's becoming quickly the standard and a government mandate in Europe. And so we expect to see that fairly soon here in the States. And obviously, if you're familiar with XML, that really has a lot of benefits associated with it. We're already built to handle those.
Yep. Yeah,
good. Yeah. And then another question here: do you store other documents such as customer purchase orders?
Yeah, there's different ways how we can deal with that. The most simple way is I can show that right here. Actually, you can just drag and drop any file over here, and it will be associated in this case with the record that we've selected. It's only one, but really just drag and drop it over, and it gets stored and associated with the file. The benefit is it doesn't count against the OCR. It's a simple way to associate a file with a transaction. And again, this can be any file type. The more automated way to deal with that is that we run it through OCR. You can see the different document categories that we have. We focused on purchase invoices, but these can be easily extended, and we can create specific business rules for each document category. So we can also just OCR the entire file. And a recent example that we had was technical drawings. A client of ours had technical drawings, and they wanted to associate those with the items inside of Business Central. The OCR cannot do much with a technical drawing, obviously, but in each file, in the file was the actual item number listed. We go through all these files, we OCR the files, and if we find the item number, we know, hey, this must be associated with this item. So we simply attach it to that item card. So it's certainly very easily to handle other document types. And even with a little piece of information in there, we can automate these tasks.
I appreciate you showing the document categories, Chris. And I want to emphasize too that it's not just that list you see there. You can create your own custom document category. So again, very extensible. I mentioned earlier, we've talked to several food and beverage customers, right? They get these certificates of analysis or chemical, composition, those types of things where they have to keep track of all that, right? Again, we can read all the data off of that, store that in BC, and attach it to wherever you want to attach it. It's all configurable. So, hey, one other thing I just want to clarify, Chris, and I'm in the process, while you're addressing it, I'm going to switch over to slides, and then I think we've got a couple more questions coming in, so I appreciate that. I wanted to reemphasize, we went through a lot of manual updates there, right? But again, you don't do that every time. It's just adjusting the vendor template, right? Once that's set, it's set, and you never have to touch it until you want to, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no. If we go into one of the earlier examples, we looked into Lewis Home Furniture. If I don't want to deal with these guys manually anymore, because I have a template, so I don't have to, all I need to do is define what the next step is. The first step is to create an invoice. It can do that. The next step is left blank. Whenever I'm ready to automate Lewis Home Furniture, I just tell it what the next step is, submitting it for approval, releasing it, or posting it. It still has to comply with the general Business Central rules, of course. So even if I put it to post, if it requires an approval, it's going to force it through an approval process. There's no way I can bypass general business rules by doing this, to make sure that we're still compliant with all those, of course.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm going to grab the presentation rights back from you and
Just gave it.
show, make sure I get the full thing. Are we, okay. Let me check that my slide is shown. Fantastic. All right, just a couple follow-up, again, points to underscore, and then had a question on pricing too, so we're going to get to that. Again, we're really trying to make life easier for the finance team, but for the organization overall, right? And so, again, if we can get folks stop doing repetitive tasks and doing that manual data entry and speeding up time of research, that makes us very, very happy. And I think that resonates with anybody on the finance team that's on the call here as well. Not only, certainly time is the thing that comes to mind fastest, but think about just the hidden time, right? In terms of doing research and correcting errors and trying to figure out what happened with something, right? Getting that call from a vendor and tracking down that invoice, all those things really do add up, and you get it all in the system and and automated, right? Then you are really truly being able to refocus your time into something more important. So we love hearing feedback, of course. I love Don's quote in particular, right? I think he encapsulated the entire shift that we're trying to achieve here, changing his team from being data enterers to data analysts, right? Being able to be proactive and focused on value-added activities to make decisions and drive information and insights and be able to drive the company forward. I think that's a beautiful thing. And we would love to hear some stories like that, and like Andrew shared earlier. So how do you get that done? Well, one is take advantage of all of the resources that we provide out on our website and YouTube. And in particular, we have demos of all our solutions out there, and we go not only for an overall demo, we have particular specific pieces of functionality included. We have all our documentation publicly available. It's crazy, actually, but you can go and learn how to use the system for free. And in particular, we just overhauled our on-demand learning platform a couple months ago. It's now available, again, all for free. There's 4.5 hours of training out there on document capture alone, and you can get a certificate once you go through all of that. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more before you take the plunge, it's absolutely available. But we have a 30-day trial available as well. So really no reason not to go ahead and get started and start playing. What you want to do, of course, is contact your Innovia engagement specialist and say, hey, we're really interested in this. Let's start the trial, see how, get our hands dirty in this a little bit, see how it works, and go from there. Innovia can help you, of course, with the pricing and the implementation and how all of that works. You can start very, very small. If you want to start with just 10 invoices, Heck, if you have the availability, you can get that done in a week or two, quite honestly. It's really up to you and how fast you want to adopt the solution. It's not very complex to get started with, and then you can grow once you start getting familiar with it. Or of course, if you want to start in a big way and convert a lot of invoices and really attack it, that's up to you as well. So that's how you get started. I want to come back to the questions, Chris. Let me scroll back up, make sure I see everything. One was on pricing, and then there was another one on, yes, currently we use Clever Docs and store our data in SharePoint. Do you have a migration tool?
It depends a little bit. We don't necessarily have a migration tool, but they're very easy to put together depending on the needs. Ideally, we just have a clean start. So we just archive what you have today. We make sure that you keep access to that with your original supplier. And we take a clean cutoff moment where moving forward, everything is stored and processed through Business Central or NAV, of course. However, if you need, say, a year back or 2 years back documentation, we could run those files through OCR and similarly process them, but just tell it not to build the invoices because you already have them posted and taken care of course. So we don't want to create the payables and all that stuff. We just want the files to be active. You can obviously store anything you'd like in the same storage location that you choose to store Continuum documents in the future. And the metadata is actually often more important, right? So how does your current system know what the file's about? How do you pull those files back up if you need them? It depends on the system. I'm not familiar with this particular system, but we've certainly helped clients with historical records by running a portion or the majority of them through OCR and kind of reprocess them, but making sure that they don't generate new transactions. But yeah, if we don't have to do it, that's better, of course. But there's all cases are different.
Fantastic, yes. And one more question before I run through the pricing. And Greg, I really do appreciate all these questions. You're really hitting on some key points here, so thank you. And again, encourage anybody else to share some questions. We have a few minutes left. Short answer to this one is yes, but I'm going to ask Chris to expand on it anyway. Could you read from a supplier's manual certification and update the values in the BC? We have a custom page to record the chemistry and another one to record physical properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the basis is we OCR everything. That data is brought into BC, and then we need to tell it, teach it what we want to do with that information. What is important enough that we want to capture it specifically, or do we simply want to attach it to an item card or whichever other record you have? The key, of course, is the more information you need to capture, the more information is relevant to actually bring forward in Business Central. So not only use that to attach the file to the correct record, but use the information in the file to add it to the record, like we're doing with a subtotal amount on an invoice, for example, is a repetition, right? Repetition is key. And it doesn't have to be always in the same spot. The system is smart enough to work with captions and its relative position. And if something is on page 5 one time and on page 16 the next time, that is fine. In most cases, the system is still able to recognize it. But yeah, the repetition there is certainly helping to make that a smoother process.
Fantastic. Yes, okay. Let me go to pricing. Here we go. And so again, all publicly available, which I absolutely love. Very easy to use wizard, as you'll see here in a second. I'm just on our homepage at Continuum.com, and I'm going to go under solutions to document capture. And great place to reference. Let me scroll through this real quick. If you want to come back and look at any particular details, we've got a couple options here. And then here is a breakdown of our different modules and what you get in each. And if you hover over this, it even gives you a little bit more explanation. So a lot of detail there, of course. As you scroll down, then you can see some use cases and case studies and so forth and other demos. But we're going to talk about pricing. And so let me hit find your price. And this is pretty far up on the page, so you don't have to scroll down too far. As mentioned, we support back to Nav 3.7. We do see a lot of traffic for Business Central. There are 2 different pricing models in play here, so very important that you know the current version that you're on. I'm going to go ahead and select US dollars, and we'll walk through Business Central. Again, if you're on on-prem Business Central or Nav, you're going to select that first radio button and walk through the prompts. It works the same way. There's just, again, it's a different pricing model, a few more questions to answer. I'm going to select next. And most of our customers like using all 3 modules. Again, it allows you to dial in if you're not matching to POs or you're not wanting to do line level matching, you can dial that in more appropriately. Quick references over here under the question mark. And then for BC Cloud implementations, it's all volume based. And so how many invoices do you want to record a month? Our average customer is around 250 invoices. And so I'll put it to that and wham, there's your price. You can see the breakdown for the different modules. The total per month at 250 invoices is $209, less than $1 in invoice. And it's just that simple. We measure the volume each month. Innovia, we let Innovia know what that is, and Innovia will include that in your billing. And it's just that simple and that inexpensive. All right, so I'm glad I got a chance to walk through that. Let's take a look at questions here. Okay. Good. I don't see any other new questions in the chat or the Q&A, but we still have a minute if folks want to ask any more questions. And re-emphasize, to get started, contact your engagement specialist from Innovia and tell them that you liked what you saw and they can get you going. Gosh, there's probably, Chris, what do you think? 5, 6, 7 folks at Innovia who we've been working with over the past couple months on a couple different projects. Really,
yeah, on the functional side. Yeah. And all sales team members are aware as well. And yes. I was also brought to my attention that a lot of the Innovia customers are visiting DynamicsCon. You will be there, Mark. So yes, I will. You can also reach out through Innovia to us directly to meet up well in San Antonio.
Yeah, obviously we'd love to chat with you if you're there. Yes, I'll have my cowboy hat and boots on, that's for sure. All right, we're nearing the top of the hour. If you have any other questions, would love to hear from you. Let me go ahead and put my email in the chat here. Of course, you can contact Angie or anybody on the Innovia team. There is my email. If you have any other questions or you'd like a specific demo, let us know. And Angie, I think we're done.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Andrew, Mark, and Chris. Appreciate you all presenting today and the feedback that we got from the attendees. Very good questions. So I just want to let you know that we do have more events coming up. Check out our website at innovia.com/events. And also check out our training workshop page at innovia.com/workshops. We have a variety of workshops to fit your role, so check out the ones that are right for you and your team. And if you haven't heard the latest Innovia Conversation podcast, we have a library of podcast episodes for you to listen to, and you can learn more about our podcast episodes on our podcast page. Sorry, that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when those new episodes air. And yes, Innovia will be at Dynamics Con Live in San Antonio, Texas in September. So I will see you there, Mark, and anyone else who is going to be attending, we will see you there as well.
Awesome.
And if you haven't registered already, we do have a discount code on our website. So go to innovia.com/conferences and check out that discount code for Dynamics Con Live.
Yes,
All right, well, I
still
just
time to
want to, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, still time to register, and you really ought to take a look at the agenda. It's very impressive. It's going to be a fantastic event. So, Angie,
Yes.
thank you as always for the collaboration and opportunity.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. I hope you all have a good day. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.